Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Warminster Township Board of Supervisors meeting for Thursday, November 18th. And let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for all our brave servicemen and women and civilians working overseas. Okay, thank you. All right. I don't believe I have any announcements other than we're happy that we're going to present a well-balanced budget again this year. But I'll pass that along to Kathy.
I have no announcements tonight, Mr. Hayes. Mark?
Mark?
Yeah, I have a couple, Mr. Chairman. Just want to remind everyone that this coming Sunday is the Hatboro Holiday Parade at 2 p.m. down on York Road. Always a good event, and the William Tennant Marching Band is always in that parade as well. So now support the Marching Panthers and have a good time. Sunday, the 21st, is also the Sip and Shop over at the golf course. I know I mentioned it at the last meeting. It's the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and I believe it's from 11 till 2. I don't have the date or time exact, but I think it's 11 to 2. And I was told it's run by the Warminster Historical Society, and Matt Penji has informed me that they have 40 vendors lined up, that they had to stop taking vendors. So I'm sure it'll be packed with vendors. Go over and have a glass of wine or your favorite beverage and do some shopping and help support the Warminster Historical Society. And the last thing I have is I saw somewhere today on social media that it was Chief Donnelly's birthday. So I want to wish him one more year closer to retirement. Oh, I'm sure you are. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Mary?
Good evening, everyone. I have Parks and Recs announcements. Virtual astronomy, don't miss out on the celestial highlights presented by Rittenhouse Astronomical Society on Tuesday, November 23rd at 8:30 p.m. This free half-hour lesson is provided via Zoom. Contact Parks and Rec for the Zoom connection. Discount movie tickets and recwear. If you're looking for great gifts for family and friends, consider discount Regal movie tickets and recwear, hooded and crew sweatshirts, and our famous green ring t-shirts. Stop by the office during regular business hours to purchase. Dog licenses. Sales of the 2022 annual dog license will begin December 2nd, 2021. Pennsylvania law requires that all dogs over the age of 3 months must be licensed and have a rabies vaccination. Warminster Community Park improvements. We will continue to work on the finishing touches of the grant construction project at Warminster Community Park throughout the winter and spring as the weather permits. Trails are open for use. For more information or to see pictures of the project, stop by the Parks and Rec office at Warminster Community Park or call 215-443-5428. The Friends of Warminster Park's fundraising efforts Bank Shop Basketball. After receiving a generous legacy gift, Friends are fundraising to complete the intergenerational all-inclusive Bank Shop Basketball program, which is being installed now. For more information or to donate, go to www.friendsofwarminsterparks.org. Hometown Hero banners remain available. The Friends of Warminster Parks continue to offer Hometown Hero banner program, honoring our local veterans. Banners are displayed along Veterans Way in Warminster Community Park from April through December. For an application or more information, go to www.friendsofwarminsterparks.org or stop by the Parks and Rec office. Check out the Township e-newsletter online at www.warminstertownship.org. Information for all programs and events are available at www.warminstertownship.org/special events or call 215-443-5428. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mary. And Judy?
Hi, I want to remind you all that the Ben Wilson Senior Activity Center is open full-time now, and they have lunches that are sponsored by the Bucks County Committee on Aging on Mondays. They're only $2 for a healthy meal. They're having a series of computer classes through to the end of December. They're free, and you can learn about how to trace your ancestry and how to keep your telephone safe, your phone, and more. Several holiday events are coming up in December. There's one special one, is a Philly Pop Christmas special at the Kimmel Center on 12/17. And they are looking for volunteers for Meals on Wheels and for picking up donations. So if anybody could volunteer, please do so. You can check out all the other activities at Ben Wilson's menu, their page, their webpage at bwsac.org. bwsac.org. That's it.
And Judy, I've been to that holiday show down at the Kimmel Center.
Nice,
It's
huh?
terrific, terrific.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, everyone. I guess we'll go right to public comment. Any public comment tonight?
Can I make a
Okay.
comment?
Sure.
I neglected during my announcements, I wanted to congratulate Kathy Frescatore on her reelection to this board, and I also wanted to congratulate Janice Charlton, who's in the audience
Yeah.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Savannah Hydrick, who was elected township auditor as well, so
Oh.
congratulations.
Yep,
I appreciate it.
congratulations to all the newly elected candidates.
And I'm sure we're all incredibly glad that silly season has come to an end.
Yes, we are. We can get that back to business. So, thanks, Mark, that slipped my mind, thank you. All right, so,
Mr. President,
yes,
prior to the meeting tonight, we met in executive session. In accordance with the Sunshine Law, we met in executive session to discuss the hiring of a new manager and interviewing. We also discussed various legal matters involving potential litigation, as well as negotiations matters involving fire personnel.
thank you.
Mr. President, that has a nice
Yeah.
Nice ring.
Yeah, nice ring,
Yeah, Mr. President.
yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
thank you.
that's his next job.
Yeah.
You gotta start
So as long as people keep me out of trouble, I missed that announcement as well, so it's good. I'm on a roll tonight. All right. I don't think we have any more comments or announcements. So let's move to the consent agenda. Let's consider approval of the Board of Supervisors minutes from October 7th. I know we didn't have that one last month or at the last meeting, and then consider approval of the Board of Supervisors minutes dated November 4th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Second. Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
5-0.
5-0. All right, finance report, Mary?
I have a bill list dated November 18th, 2021, in the amount of $888,452.57.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the bill list?
Motion?
Second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Being none, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-0. All right, now we'll go to unfinished business. And I'm going to hand this off to Mr. Wiesner. Review of the 2022 proposed budget and the consider authorization to advertise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we're privileged to have Mr. Ramey here, our finance director, who is going to lead us through a PowerPoint presentation on the proposed budget. So tonight, what we're hoping to accomplish when John gets through his presentation, and we answer any questions that might come up, is that you give us the authorization to advertise this budget and make it known to the public. And the way we would do that is we'd put an ad in the paper. The ad would go in tomorrow. It would be submitted to the paper tomorrow, and it would be in the paper and published next Tuesday. So next Tuesday, we will have available out at our front desk the proposed budget with any changes if they come about tonight. We'll also use our library. We've got a library, and this is a great place to put this budget. We created an area in the library where we want to put municipal records, and we're going to start with this budget. So people can go to the library and look at the budget at the library, here at the Township building as well, and on our website, starting next Tuesday if we accomplish what we hope to tonight.
Thank you,
With
Steve.
that, I'll have John start his presentation, and John Tintera is going to help as well.
Okay. All right, so I do know that no one's ever excited about budget presentations. They're usually dry, boring. I'm not going to promise you anything different. We're going to dive into some numbers, but I do promise to keep it brief and on point. That's the most important part.
Best we can ask.
Before I do get started, I would like to thank all the department heads that are here and have helped throughout this process. It is not easy, and it's very tedious. So thank you guys for all the work you helped put into this. Okay, so I'm going to start with a cartoon, because why not?
Hold on one second. Whoever has everyone mute their phone? Thank you. Go ahead, John.
So this is a cartoon I like to use in presentations. First, I like to look at the third frame, and that's Steve working on the budget, whipping us all into shape.
That's true.
But really, I do like to focus on the middle frame. Some people like to think numbers merely reflect reality, but we like to believe numbers create reality. By preparing next year's budget, you have to realize we are creating reality, and that we are deciding what roads are going to get paved, what programs will be running, and what employees will be hired. So remember that as we look at all of these numbers. So a quick budget overview. After no tax increase in 2021, for the 2022 tax year, we are proposing a tax increase of $1 million strictly for fire services. This will allow the township to hire 4 full-time firefighters and fund the cost for years after the SAFER grant is completed. We will look more closely at this as we go through the details of the individual funds. This increase will result in a total tax millage of 24.06. That could be broken down into 14 mils for general, 0.19 for ambulance, 2.5 for fire services, which includes the 1 mil increase, 1.85 for library services, 3.5 for Parks and Rec, and 1.7 for debt. It should be pointed out that when taxes are collected for specific purposes other than general, such as the fire, debt, and library, those funds can only be used for those purposes. Here's an example of what a property owner with an assessed value of $26,500 would pay in township taxes, $638 or $53 per month. The increase of $1 million from the prior year's millage rate works out to be $27 a year, or an additional $2.25 per month. Again, the increase can only be used for fire services.
Can I stop you right there, John?
Sure.
That number right there that people should look at, because most people look at their taxes as the school tax, you get an incredible, phenomenal amount of service for that money.
Oh, we're
in
gonna
this
dive into
township.
that, Mark.
You do.
So I would like to stress that this tax is based on the assessed value, not the market value of your property. When people see that 26.5, they go, my house is worth way more than that, and of course it is. But property assessments are done by the county and are available on their website. So obviously not everyone has an assessed value of exactly $26,500. To make the calculation on an individual property, all you need to do is take the assessed value from the county, divide it by 1,000, and multiply it by the township millage rate of 24.06 that is proposed. Here's a breakdown of the total real estate taxes a property owner will pay in 2022, with the assumed assessed value of the $26,500, with the total township portion only being 12% of the total real estate taxes. Here's a closer look at some of the services the county provides for the 13% they collect. Some obvious ones are the courts, the community college, but let's take a closer look at the last one, the human services. This includes the area on aging, behavioral health, child and youth, and drug and alcohol. These are all things that affect our community, which are county programs that the township refers people to every day. Here are the services that the township provides. When you look at all the services, We believe local government gives residents the most bang for your buck compared to any service someone pays for. For only $638 a year, or 12% of your total taxes, you get police, fire, public works, the library, the parks and rec, and so on. See?
John, thank you. I just wanted to make mention on this slide how important this is, what John's talking about. Many don't know, we operate under the second-class township code, and the second-class township code directs us to do those things. So the county has a code book similar to this, gives them the authority to do the things John talked about just on the slide before, and there's another code book for the school districts as well, and that will be the slide that's coming. So in this book, it directs our supervisors in the township as to why we're important and the things we do. Number one, under township supervisors, the board of supervisors shall be charged with the general governance of the township and the execution of legislative, executive, administrative powers in order to ensure sound fiscal management. And that's one thing this board has always been saying to me. We want to make sure everything's balanced. That's what we're talking about tonight in this budget. And that it's sustainable. So that is something that's very important that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. And to serve the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the township. And we do that through the services that John just mentioned.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. All right, so finally, here are some of the services the school district provides with the remaining 75% of your total tax bill. So we're going to look at some numbers. I hope everyone can stay focused. I'm going to take a quick look at each fund the township budgets for. In this presentation, I like to focus on fund balance or reserves. This allows us to not only show what money will be coming in and going out next year, but we'll also show what reserves we plan on starting and ending the year with. As you can see here, there's no budgeted increase or, more importantly, a decrease in fund balance for the general fund. Although we're not budgeting for an increase in fund balance, we're hoping to continue the increase. The GFOA recommends a minimum of 3 months of expenses. Currently, we have 4 months of expenses. This is an improvement from the end of 2020 because of better than expected revenues, decrease in expenses, and in 2021, the general fund began getting reimbursed from other funds for expenses that were paid out on a monthly basis. Also, the general fund was able to collect a $1 million due from the GOF fund that has been receivable for many years. This is a strong balance. This strong fund balance is important because it allows for unanticipated expenses, but also helps the township's bond rating for any future borrowings it may need. Steve, you got something?
Thank you, John. I just want to make mention as well, and to build on what John had just mentioned, the two most important numbers on that slide are the two in the middle, which show revenues and expenses equal. We worked very hard to make sure that they did. Over previous years, those numbers were not equal. In fact, the expenses were higher than the revenues, and that's what resulted in the fund balance continuing to go down. So we worked very hard with the things that John just mentioned to ensure that we had a balanced budget. We did have a couple of one-hit wonders this year that John mentioned as well. For 2022, our minimum municipal obligation for our pension plans went down because we received such strong results in the stock market for our investments for our pension funds. So that was a nicety. That will likely only last for 2022 and 2023, when we had our meeting with the actuary for the pensions just about 3 weeks ago. They had mentioned to us, we do an evaluation every 2 years. Right now, everyone is watching the news and wondering what is going to happen with this market. We hope that it sustains, but if the market has a correction and goes down, our MMO could go back up, and that's why it's so important, and I know the board knows this, and they've asked us to look at the budget and making sure that it's balanced. That's so important as to why we have to balance this budget. We have to look towards the future. So, thank you.
Thank you,
John.
Steve.
And I do think it's important that there's a concept of current year revenues for current year expenses. So the residents that are living here today are paying for expenses that are expenses for today. So that's why them being equal is a very important thing. So here you can see a breakdown of the general fund revenues. The Act 511 taxes are 46% and are the largest revenue. This includes the EIT at $4,750,000 and transfer taxes at $825,000. They are the two biggest revenues in the entire budget. Real estate taxes make up an additional 32%. These sources of revenue make up a total of 78% of the revenue of the general fund. Also listed is what makes up the remaining 22%. Here's a breakdown of the general fund expenses. Public safety is the largest category at 74%. This is made up of the police, L&I, emergency management, and fire services. The remaining 26% is broken down into public works, administration, the non-uniform pension expense, facilities, and just 1% for other random expenses. I feel this shows a commitment to the public safety that the township has made and the community is looking for. Okay. Here's the township's one business type fund. The GOT fund has a budgeted increase in fund balance. Overall, the goal for fund balance of business type funds is at least 6 months of expenses, which has us right on target. The budgeted expenses do include capital improvements and purchases. This is the reason for the larger fund balance as opposed to the 3 months that we have for the general fund. Because in future years, capital improvements may have to be paid from these reserves. The next funds the township budgets for are the special revenue funds. All of these funds are balanced with increases to fund balance, or in other words, revenues exceed expenses. All the funds are showing healthy fund balances. This is especially important for the library and parks fund. Since they have dedicated millage, funds can only be used for that purpose. So when the library and parks need capital improvements or repairs, they need money in reserves since they do not have their own dedicated capital funds. Go into the fire fund in a little bit. Here you can see the sanitation, highway traffic, and highway aid funds. These funds have very specific purposes, which funds are restricted for their special uses. So here you can see what the $1 million increase will be used for. The township is looking to hire 4 full-time firefighters with the cost will begin at $462,000 for salary and benefits. This cost will increase about 3.1% every year. With the township limited to $1 million for the purpose of firefighter employment costs, which is currently only $337,000. If the taxes increase now, the additional revenue can be banked so that when the SAFER grant is completed, the program can be funded for at least the next 8 years. Steve, you got something?
Yes, thank you, John. This is important, and it's one step of a very complicated process, as you can imagine. We still need to accomplish agreements with our fire companies to make sure that this program is sustainable with their efforts as well. So this is just step one. We have a long, long ways to go, and we do need to work directly with our fire companies to see if we can accomplish those agreements to make this reality.
Okay. The next fund is the debt service fund. As you can see, next year's revenues are larger than expenses. With the refinancing done in 2021, the debt was restructured so that the general obligation debt of the township would see a large savings until a portion related to the GOT fund is paid off. At the current rate of millage, the way the debt is structured, no tax increase will be needed to match the yearly debt service for the life of this current borrowing.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes.
At the current rate of millage, the way the debt is structured, no tax increase will be needed to match the yearly debt service for the life of this current borrowing.
Great, thank you.
For the life, you
The
said.
life
Yes,
of the
for the
ball,
life.
yeah, thank you.
So the one big question people have is, when will the township debt be paid off? So on average, the principal of the debt is decreasing by $722,000 per year, which leads to the final payment of all debt scheduled for 2041, 20 years from now. This is assuming that no new debt is borrowed, and as you can see, the current balance at the end of this year will be $14,431,000. The final fund the township budgets for is the capital fund. This fund is currently funded by reserves from borrowings and grants. As you can see, the township is planning over $2.5 million in infrastructure improvements and equipment purchases just from capital funds. With an additional $500,000 from liquid fuels, here are some of the items that make up the total $3 million in capital projects the township has planned for 2022. With next year's capital improvements, a big goal is to develop a long-term capital plan, not only showing the projects and purchases are in the future, but how they'll be paid for. Okay, now that we looked at all the individual funds, let's break down what it costs to run the operations of the township as a whole. By operations, I'm talking about the total expenses, including capital purchases and infrastructure improvements. Of the close to $29 million it costs to run the township, one main category makes up 50% of the expenses. With employee costs at 50%, the total township budget, so let's take a look at the closer of what makes up that number. Here you can see a little more detail on what makes up besides the salaries and wages. Also, when looking at this number, it's important to remember the township has 3 unions it negotiates with. On a year-to-year basis, there's not much room for adjustment based on those agreed upon contracts. And you can see that the township budgets for 80 full-time and 17 part-time employees. Of the 97 full-time and part-time employees, 84 or 87% are covered by those union contracts. So for future budgeting, here's the goal of this and budgets going forward: to preserve and maintain our services and infrastructure for the benefit of the current and future residents of Warminster. And I'd just like to repeat in conclusion, for the 2022 tax year, we are proposing a tax increase of $1 million for the purpose of hiring and maintaining 4 full-time fire service personnel and to continue to provide high levels of service. And any questions?
I just have a comment.
Sure.
Phenomenal presentation and very well explained, and thank you so much. And all of your staff, Steve, you guys did a great job.
It's wonderful.
Hands down.
Yes.
Great job, guys. John, great.
I
Seriously.
Well put
I like all the
together.
colors, too.
I have a comment as well, and let's be clear that there's a big difference between capital and operating expenses. So although our capital budgets seem very healthy, which is a good thing, because we can continue to provide services through that, our operating expenses are still
Tight.
very, very tight. Yes, Steve, if you want to explain that further.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, what Mr. Hayes is referring to is, we've had an influx of some capital monies. You've heard about the monies that have coming from the federal government. We received $1.7 million in American Rescue Plan monies that can be used for only specific purposes. And the things that they prevent us from using that money for are operations. So we're very, very thankful that we have the money, but it's for capital-related or other things that are in that program that the federal government wants us to spend the money on. Infrastructure is one. There are some other things that we can spend it on, but operations are not one of the things that we can spend it on. So we have to always, every year, be diligent in looking at our expenses to make sure that they're aligned with the revenues that we're going to collect. In particular, the ARP money specifically said We cannot use that money for pensions. I think John was going to mention that, so I'm sorry I stole your thunder on that one. But that's really important because pensions are a huge cost here in this township. And also are what are known as OPEB benefits, or post-retirement healthcare benefits, are a huge expense here as well. We currently have approximately $20 million in liabilities related to OPEB benefits, and we need to start getting that down because it's going to hinder our ability to borrow money in the future and to really accomplish the things that we're all hoping to accomplish. So.
And I believe we're starting that this year, are we not?
Yes, in this binder, we have projections for this year and a budget for next year. So in the projections for this year, which is not something that you're going to vote on, at the next meeting, we'll have a budget amendment, and I'll include this within it. I have, as the manager, the ability to assign money of our fund balance, as long as I notify the board of what I'm assigning. So we had talked about this a number of times, and I'll mention it here again. My plan is to assign $1.5 million for a future trust fund to pay down those OPEB benefits. And the board, of course, can change that. You can override me. You can say, no, we don't want to do that. We'd rather be used for capital or for whatever other purpose. But I'll sign it for that because I think it's something that we all believe is important to do. And at our last pension advisory board meeting, we did discuss it.
And once it's assigned there, it stays there.
It stays there.
It's assigned, and what happens is I assign it, and then what I would recommend is the board take that next step and we create that trust fund.
Right.
And once it gets into that trust fund, we can never take it out.
Long overdue.
Right.
Yes.
And by getting it into a trust fund, it enables the township to invest those funds within the markets, within the stock market, the bond market. And there we hope to gain a much better appreciation of the asset rather than just putting it in a money market, which is if it was general fund monies, we could only do.
So I'm extremely pleased with this because I sat in Mr. Hayes' chair, and while the sky was falling with pensions, reminded people year in and year out that the OPEB is our real problem right now. And it is, and I'm extremely glad that we're finally addressing it.
Yeah, and we will take the next step and make sure that it's untouchable. So, because it is a problem, we all realize it, and we've been waiting to I mean, the last couple of years were difficult, and we were waiting to get our house in order as best we could, so we could address this, and I'm very pleased that we can do it in the third year, at least of my term.
Yep. We'll probably take into 2022, the early part of 2022, to get all the documents in order and to create the mechanism to do it.
So for the public, we'll be discussing this in further detail
Sure.
in the next couple of months, but the money is being assigned through this budget process.
Yes, through my, through the projection for this year.
Correct.
And in addition to that, we had talked at the last meeting about how some of the monies from the sale of the stormwater system, how they were allocated. And in that slide from the last meeting, 1.5 was for OPEB, as we just spoke about. 2 million was in there for also transferring over to capital. That's for this year's budget. It's not something you need to vote on for next year's budget. But if we have funds available, I may up that to 2.4 and propose that at the next meeting. And that would cover some of our expenses related to the projects that we're currently working on.
Understood.
And we'd also, at the next meeting, John and I, and John and the department heads are all going to look at where we're at to see if we need to have a budget amendment. And that's so we can bring awareness to the board where we're at. And there may be some things we need a budget amendment on, and we'll bring it right here to this public meeting in this forum so we can discuss it.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, I have two comments.
Yes.
So the one thing Steve was talking about is within a financial statement, when you look at it, there's an unassigned fund balance, and that's what we were looking at up here. That's free to do whatever that purpose of the money is, the general. It will actually be set aside within the financial statement of it's assigned or committed, and then there'll be a footnote saying this is what that money's there for. So anyone reading the financial statement, it will be out of unassigned, and it will just be like, hey, this is what the money's for. As you're reading it, this is what our goal is with that money being assigned. The only other thing I was going to touch on, I kind of mentioned in here, was that long-term capital plan. So we do have next year's general fund, revenues equaling expenses. What's missing from there is a transfer to capital to fund future capital projects. That should be the ultimate goal, is that we're funding projects for not just the next year, the following years, and going forward. So that's something that we really want to look into. And that's why I always say, it's not just what you want to purchase, how are you going to pay for it? And that's the really meat of a capital plan, is how are you going to pay for it all?
Which is a question I ask people all the time.
I've seen way too many capital
We
plans.
love it. How do you want to pay for it?
Yeah, most capital plans are just wish lists.
Yeah.
There's no idea of funding or paying for it. So that's the one thing, my goal personally is to develop is that capital plan next year and show this is what we need to, we know what cars are going to expire. We know what projects we want to do, what we want to set aside for paving of roads each year. And then say, okay, this is where the money's going to come from and
Right.
how it's going to happen.
And that's long overdue as well, because I don't believe that we've been doing that.
We've never had a 5-year plan that
Never
I
had a
know of
5-year
that has
plan.
gone way out.
We had a capital plan a few years ago, but it was pie in the sky. You know, it was never.
Never how to pay for
It was a wish
Right.
list.
Right.
That's
Never
why I
had
always
to
say
pay
they
for
are.
it.
All right.
You know, and
What
that,
it is, I have no idea, you know.
that falls into operations too. It's sure, we'd love to add all kinds of jobs and operating personnel and software. How do you want to pay for it? That's always the question.
Can I mention something, John?
Sure.
Since I've been here, there's always been a notation in the narrative here that the golf course owes $1.8 million, $8.9 million to the general fund. Has that been satisfied?
Yes, I
That's-
mentioned it.
Being
Yes,
a
it
Mr.
was paid
Taylor's
off.
here, being a Mike's here,
And-
that has been a notation in
and-
my binder since the day I arrived.
And that's why our
in the
fund
narrative.
balance is up to the 4 months because of that $1 million that came
Right.
in.
Right.
Excellent.
And I know that was a pet peeve of Mr. McCauley, so Bill, if you're watching, that was,
Right,
I think it was everyone's
That made him crazy.
it did.
but that's been satisfied. And the
Yes.
golf course
Yep.
is very healthy.
Yep,
right
so
now,
they are repaying the general fund for every dollar that they, all expenses get paid out of the general fund checking account.
Right.
But they are reimbursed within the next month. So that's the one thing that is recurring on a very regular basis now. And I think that has helped with the fund balance
I want to
also.
thank Mike Ater and his group for that. That's why they were brought here. So, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And our escrow funds are
Yep, that's
Are all-
they're being reimbursed monthly also.
Yay.
All right.
about time.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks, and great job.
Thank you, John.
And actually, one more thing before I leave. I do want to thank Steve. I don't know how many more meetings he's going to be sitting up there, but this has been a great experience working with you.
I love Louise.
We all
Thank you,
say,
John.
Thank you.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't call you Mr. President this time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a motion is in order to advertise the 2022 proposed budget for Warminster Township.
Okay,
Motion.
is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I know we've been through this. We've all sat down individually with Steve and everyone. I know all my questions have been satisfied. Is there any questions or comments from the public?
Good evening, everybody. Bob Wells, Hollow Avenue. Is there any future hires in these budgets that you have here for employees?
Not for next year, other than what John had mentioned.
Okay.
This budget is only for 1 year, for 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Good.
Actually, I'm sorry, Steve, but to correct that, there is positions to hire for a manager, an assistant manager.
I'm so sorry.
That's right.
So there are two
Which
new
are very
positions
important.
budgeted in here.
And there are, and I forgot, there are also 2 part-time park people that are in the budget as well.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
Thank you, John.
No
I
problem.
completely forgot about that. And Bob, those were already in the budget, but they will, John, I'm so glad that he mentioned that. We have preserved for the assistant manager a hire as well in this budget. So that will be someone hired for next year as well. So thank you for bringing it up. John, thank you. I would have missed those two.
Thank you, because they are probably the two most important people in our operations, excluding the chief, of course.
Whose birthday is today?
Whose birthday is
Yes.
today, that's right.
He's so thrilled to be here for his birthday.
Yeah, I used to see that. All right, any other questions or comments? No other questions or comments from the public? Going once, going twice. All right, being none, let's call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
And may I make one other additional comment?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to acknowledge Mike Atera and Kevin from the golf course came tonight. They did have a brief presentation they were going to make. May I invite you back to the next meeting where the budget would be adopted, and you could show us all the positive results of the golf course. They have done an incredible job. The revenues are up significantly. The golf course is in fantastic shape. As Mark had mentioned, that enabled us to pay down the amount of money that the golf course is owed, the general fund. And that golf course is a great asset to this community because it preserves that open space. It's also a watershed and handles, when there's a big storm like the storm we had this year, it is a huge watershed that can capture that water and slow it down before it disperses. And we have this golf course that's known far and wide. And I think we have a great management team to do it. And it's going to enable us to bring some of that money back into the general fund and the park fund, possibly the library fund in future years.
Well, that's enough, Steve. They're going to be asking us for more money when they come back.
That's why I'm making mention now that we're going to utilize that money
That's right.
for those other sources. Exactly. Thank you, Randy.
You see riparian buffers and flood,
But we're very thankful for their efforts, and if you guys wouldn't mind, since we didn't have time today, we'll bring you back at the next meeting. And
thanks, Mike. And
Thanks,
the
Mike.
golf
Thanks,
course
Mike.
is in
Thank you.
fantastic shape. You guys did a great job this year. It really, really is. It's a pleasure to golf there, actually.
It sure is. That is.
I don't golf, and I hear great things about it all the time. Thank you.
Karen and Kathy are also here tonight. If you had any questions about the park fund, that's a big part of this township as well. This is one of the biggest years for them. They've had many big years, but boy, did we make a lot of huge accomplishments in the park fund this year with all the improvements that were made and many more to come. And we have Shenandoah Woods that's coming online as well. So it is amazing how much work is involved in getting grants as large as the grants that we did get and accomplishing so much. So that is a big deal. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I think
It is the jewel in Warminster. You
yeah,
guys do a
Karen and
great
Kathy
job.
have aged about 5 years this year. They had the park project, and it had to be done for Warminster Day, and then touch a truck right after that, and the golf outing right after that. I mean, they really had to do a yeoman's job this
Yeah,
year.
and it's a great job, and now that it is the marquee here, I'm sure we have enough courts for basketball tournaments. I'm assuming we can have baseball, all kinds of different tournaments, and really showcase that park, and great job, thank you. Okay. Let's go to new business. And we're going to consider a motion to appoint a new township manager and approve the employment agreement. Mr. Flagger,
Mr. Chairman,
thank you.
I'm happy to say that the Board of Supervisors interviewed a number of candidates. The candidate that they felt was the best qualified was Thomas Scott, who's with us today. And we have an employment agreement, which he's agreed to. He actually signed it pending your approval, so that if you approve it, he will be the new manager in Warminster Township.
Okay. So,
Motion is
I'll make
appropriate.
the motion.
motion to
Motion
approve
to
the employment
approve.
agreement?
I'll
To
second.
appoint him township manager and
And
approve the employment agreement.
agreement.
I'll
So
second.
moved.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments from the
Do we
board?
have an effective date? Effective? Effective
December 13th.
December the 13th, 2021.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Flagger. I know we've been through the interview process, and there were some good candidates. And, I think that I agree that we've found what we think would be probably the most qualified to manage Warminster Township. Any other questions or comments? Any from the public? Okay, being none, let's call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, welcome, Tom.
Yes.
You want to come up and introduce yourself to
Say hello.
the residents and the staff here?
I'm just carrying this. This is not a speech. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm thrilled to be here tonight to accept the position as Township Manager. I'm looking forward to working with all of you and everybody else here who doesn't know me yet. And I'm a Township lifer, so whatever you guys have been through, I've been there too. And I'm looking forward to a great 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
And welcome aboard.
Chief Donnelly stepped out, but I'm sure he'll agree with me that we're extremely glad to have another bald guy on board. Right, Chief? Right,
There he
Chief?
is.
Right, exactly.
Well, in the last couple of weeks, in discussing the opportunity with Mr. McCauley and Mr. Flagger, each day it seemed my interest and my excitement grew, and I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm really looking forward to taking over. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have you want to do new signing? I have a number of agreements. What's your pleasure? How many, you want an original for the township, one for,
Yes.
okay. Stick around afterwards and we'll sign some, so everyone has an original, and the township has an original contract. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
All right. That was a long time coming, and boy, am I glad that we found someone that's actually looking forward to coming here and working. So, welcome aboard, Tom.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, Steve?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, if you are satisfied with tonight's presentation, it sounds like you were, you made a motion to have us authorize this. You have an opportunity, we don't have much on the agenda for December 2nd. If you wanted to have, as we typically do, only one meeting a month, you could cancel that meeting, and the next meeting would be on December 16th to allow that we have enough time to make sure that we're making this budget available for anyone who wants to review it. That gives us the number of days that we need. That's up to the board.
No objection.
Any objections?
No objection.
Okay. So let's do that.
So the next meeting of the township will be on December 16th, 2020, 7 PM.
2020.
I'm sorry, 2021. 2021, thank you.
Okay.
He's a time traveler.
Oh,
Go right ahead.
and that's all, the meetings are on the back of the agenda for anyone who's interested, and any of the other meetings of the township. I think mentioned in our budget presentation that we'll have a budget amendment at that meeting, and any other land developments that may come up.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. And I just want to, for the closing comments here, I want to thank you for stepping in. You did a fantastic job, and I appreciate, I can't express in words how much I appreciate what you've done for us. It was fantastic. I mean, we would have been in really bad shape if you didn't step in, let's put it that way. Because we had to take some actions, and we're very grateful that you came and stepped in and helped us out. And what a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Public comment?
Oh, yeah. So I jumped the gun again. It's been a great meeting. Any other public comment? Bob? Come on up, Bob.
It's officially a gig.
Bob Wells, Hollow Avenue, Warminster, PA. First, I want to say, everyone have a great Thanksgiving. Steve, I condone what he says. You did a great job. I wish you were staying. I kept calling Mark, said, we got to keep this guy. So you did a phenomenal job. I do have one question. How long is the contract for the new manager? How many years?
It's for the term of, I don't know, it's a couple of years. It's the term of,
I believe it's 2.
yeah, it's 2 years,
2 years?
but there's Yeah, that's all it can be for,
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
And
that's the
then we'll
law.
review it
It's
in
only for
2 years, and,
It's only 2 years.
and then we can renew it, or.
Renew it, or
whatever.
both sides are free to,
Right.
Great. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bob.
Any other comments? All right, well, as Bob said, have a great Thanksgiving, and Steve, once again, can't express how grateful we are. You did a fantastic job, and John, as well, all our staff that put the budgets together, all of our department heads, and hopefully we have a banner year next year as well.
I have a couple of supervisors, when you're ready for supervisor comment.
Yeah, that's where we are now, so I'll go to Kathy first, then to you, Mark. Go ahead,
Sure.
Kathy.
I'd like to piggyback on what Ken said. We were really in a bad situation when you stepped in to rescue us, and you certainly did, and you did it with grace and kindness, but you're tough too. I like all of that about you, and I like all the planning and giving us the right advice that we needed to get on the right financial path. And I believe by looking at this, your budget is phenomenal, John. You did a really great job. All your staff, I know, John, you helped out a lot with it. I want to thank all of you. I feel really, really good that we are, and then now having a permanent manager down the road, it's great, but we wish you the really very, very best. You're always going to be a friend of Warminster. You're our honorary resident forever.
Well, thank you, Kathy. I very, very much appreciate that. This is my third time here, and I've enjoyed each of them. They've all been great challenges, probably the biggest challenges in my career. But I have enjoyed it, and I do appreciate your trust. And I really sincerely have enjoyed working with all the department heads and the employees of the township, because they are the ones, like you just mentioned, that make it all happen. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So did you hear that, Tom, about the challenges?
Yeah.
By the way, Bob, every day I would call him and say,
And Tom.
it's yours if you want it. You got it, here you go. And he kept telling me, yeah, thanks, Ken. That was it. Yeah, I know. I even threw them in, yeah.
I might take you up on one or two. if
Sure,
I'm still
absolutely.
available, you know?
No, they're available, absolutely. All right,
All right.
go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Per usual, there's an open house at the McKee House on Wednesday night. Chief, if any of the fellows are in the neighborhood, tell them to stop by and grab a bite to eat. Also, I want to thank Steve. As long as I've been in this business, you're the best friend that I've made in this business. You are. I have nothing but the utmost respect, and your last name's wrong. It should be Wisner, not Wisner. Wise man, you are. And I've always appreciated the advice that you've given me. Like your first time here, I'd be on the phone with I'm going to go strangle this one right now. Don't you dare. But always, and you're the best friend that I've made in this business, and I really mean that.
Mark, I've told you often, and I mean it sincerely. I appreciate all your support as well. I really do, and I've enjoyed it. We've had some great conversations on the phone that have been very animated, and I appreciate you letting me express my thoughts, and yours as well. Mark, it really has. It's been a crazy ride starting back in 2014.
Yes. And don't tell my wife, but you're the one that made me a Penn State fan, not her. So thank God she's not here tonight. It's on record now. But no, thanks again. I can't thank you enough for what you did for me personally and for this township.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
There's not much else to say. Everybody already has said it, but you have been a true gentleman, a true asset. You have done a wonderful job explaining everything to the board, to the township, to the residents, and again, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I've enjoyed it.
Judy?
Oh, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and isn't it wonderful that we can all sit down together this year and be able to, there'll be of course, some empty seats, but it's great that we can all be together. I want to thank you too, Steve. I want to tell people a little bit about Steve to show you how kind he is. I had to take somebody to the hospital during that outrageous storm where the Even Street Road was closed, and I came home in it. I was stuck. Steve was calling people, giving them updates on the floods, and he was calling me and saying, how far are you now? Where are you now? How did you get home? Let me know when you get home. He was very kind, and I have to tell you, when I was sitting in a puddle scared to death, it was very comforting, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Judy, that was that was a fun day. The chief was on the phone as well, and I was ready to call him if you did get stuck, and he would have been out there with somebody to rescue you as well. So, and what you were doing was such a kind thing by taking a friend to the hospital down in Philadelphia, and that's a big deal, you know. And you did it in the middle of a storm, a
Well,
crazy, crazy storm.
It
And-
let up for like half an hour, and I thought it was going to be okay, and then all of a sudden the heavens opened on the way home, you know, and it was really.
Well, that shows how kind of a person you are, and that's a big deal. It really is.
Mr.
We'll
Chairman.
miss you, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judy.
No, I'm done.
Being that it's the chief's birthday, if I might, that night of that storm, when things were finally calming down, and I know there were roads closed everywhere, and I said to my wife, "You want to have a laugh? Oh, let's call the chief." It was like the Flintstones. I'm holding the phone out. You can hear them screaming. These people, I have barricades up, and they still go through them and go in the water. Now we got to go take them out. My wife, let's have a laugh. I just held the phone out.
Judy did not go through one of those barricades, I can promise
So we
you.
put barricades up, and they still go through them. Right.
Yeah.
I did drive ever, I did drive ever.
But happy
somebody's
birthday
lawn,
again,
though.
chief.
Hey, better than drowning, right? Yes. Yes.
All right, well, very productive meeting, thank you. I guess I'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Steve?